Hello and welcome to this. It is the EggChasers Rugby Podcast, the podcast about rugby that doesn't take itself or the game too seriously. I'm JB, solemnly alone in the rugby dungeon without my friends because they are down the line. Tim, where are you? You're in Greece or Monaco or where are you?
A travel lodge in Farringdon, mate.
Oh, wow. Presumably waiting.
Times have changed.
Haven't they just? Fallen upon hard times or what, mate? What's going on there?
Well, the actual truth of the matter is I could not bear a 3.5 hour train back from London to Manchester this evening, which would have risked missing the podcast completely.
Yep.
And so I decided to just get myself... So basically, I'm here. I've paid for a hotel room to do the podcast and also to save myself an hour and a half of my time, which I think, there you go. So just however you want.
A travel tavern. Very nice. And Phil, where are you? You're somewhere weird.
Not that weird. North Yorkshire Moors.
So this is your annual excursion, walking. You haven't had enough walking this month, so off you go again.
Well, I'm not doing that much walking at the moment. My walking action has been so infrequent that my Garmin now thinks that I should be doing 6,000 steps a day because it tails off when you do less and less and peaks up when you do more and more.
Is that right?
So Yeah.
Is that why it keeps on telling me random targets that I've hit? Like, oh, well done, you're doing 7,000 and I've set it for 12.
Yeah, so mine is on. I've never set mine. Mine just like tracks. So if I'm like in normal life, I walk somewhere between 10 and 15,000 steps on a normal day. So my average is normally around the 15,000 mark. But in the last 2 weeks since I nearly killed myself, it's dropped down to 6,000 because I've not been I've not been doing anything. So today I got a massive pat on the back after walking 6,100 steps today.
So quick question for you. What is the point in going to North Yorkshire if you can't go hiking?
I can go and eat ice cream on the beach.
Oh, lovely.
And I can do some cycling, which is one of the things I did this afternoon.
Lovely.
So there's still plenty to do.
Well, after last week's rugby hiatus, we have some rugby to talk about again, boys. Actual senior competitive rugby.
Well, JB, this links in some way to the podcast, hopefully, because as well as the rugby we can actually talk about, I want to be able to get to some emails, but I can't see the emails. But contact eggchasers@gmail.com is our email address. I'm going to just send a little thing. Can you just accept? You need to send a little... I need to do a thing to your phone, JB. It should just come up, and the number 28 is what you need to select.
I don't think it's coming to my phone. I think it's going to your old phone, Tim.
No, it's an S21.
Yeah, that's not my phone.
Was it your phone?
It used to be my phone from that was 6 EggChasers trips ago.
Right.
So
okay.
Last time I had a
because so
go on.
What rugby based trip did you lose that S21 phone in?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So I currently operate a Google Pixel 7 Pro. My Google Pixel 7 was left in a taxi in Manchester, never to be seen again. My Google Pixel 6A was lost in, not Barcelona, the one before Barcelona. Then I lost one in Dubai. I've lost one in Lisbon. Lisbon would have been when I lost my Google, so it'd be Madrid when I lost my S21. So there is some guy in Madrid who, fingers crossed, will accept you.
He won't know what number to type in to give me access to the email.
Well, he's got a 1 in 3 chance.
Right. Well, you're going to have to sort that out at some point.
Yes,
because there's nothing I can do, so I cannot get into our emails. By the way, I've just got a Pixel 7. It's very, very good.
Good, aren't they? For recording your CrossFit workouts.
Anyway, so yes. Oh, no, never mind the emails, unless any of you have got your eyes on it. Otherwise, well, let's just talk about the rugby.
Yes, let's. So, did anyone watch the Rugby Championship?
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
Good effort, boys.
Yeah.
So
I loved it.
I only watched part of the Australia-South Africa game. Didn't bother watching the All Blacks game. I've got a real keen interest this time round in South Africa. I think they look awesome. But yeah, that's one that I wanted to watch. So why don't we start with that one?
And is it worth Here's a question for both of you, because I saw as well South Africa, Australia, got to watch virtually all of the game live. Mm-hmm. Were South Africa, considering it was not their first choice team, and they've got, is it 12 bodies in New Zealand at the moment preparing?
12 very large bodies.
What do you do with 12 men? Just 12 men on their own. What do you do with them?
Plunder New Zealand villages, impregnate the women.
It could be that. I mean, like, it's just such a tour de force from South Africa to put this sort of team out and have 12 of them. But like, I just don't understand what, other than gym work and a bit of running, I can't imagine what useful stuff they're doing in New Zealand. Is there another reason for this? Or a reason for it?
So my guess would be it's they're trying to do two things. They're taking the opportunity to rotate a little bit and avoiding some of the starters for what is obviously and evidently the bigger game based on the scores this week. They are trying to avoid probably two things: any wear and tear from this clash, plus the transit, because if you play this game, you've then within 36, 48 hours of finishing the game this week have got to jump on a 14 plus hour flight with the associated jet lag that comes with that. So it's probably those two things that was in their mind.
And massively. That's it. That's the only reason. That's it.
So
sorry, go on, Jay.
I was going to say, who are the 12 players who did not play?
Malcolm Marks, Ebenet Sabeth, Lou Diaga, Jean-Luc Dupree, Jasper Visa. They're the forwards, I think. Stephen Kitsoff was meant to be one of them as well. There may be one or two others. Mm-hmm. And then behind the scrum, Faf de Klerk, Andre Pollard, Jesse Creel, Damien Diolande, Makazole Mapimpi,
Colby.
Cheslin Colby. So that's pretty much it.
Wow.
Pretty handy team, almost a pretty amazing World Cup winning quality team.
Good Lord. Well, I tell you what, regardless of who they didn't have, it didn't seem particularly that important that they had them to begin with, because this score is worthy of women's rugby, it's got to be said. 43-12. It's not even competitive.
Well, I just want to say on the score, I'm massively disappointed with DMAC, who missed a couple of conversions. We can get onto his performance later, which is actually very good. But he missed. If he'd have got one more conversion, it would have been identical scores both games.
I know. Poor.
Two beatdowns.
Sticking with the South Africa, Australia, and the question I was going to ask was, is it more impressive? Like which is the better, or the I'm trying to think of the best way of phrasing this, but is it more impressive, the South African performance, given how many players they rested, or is it more disappointing, the Australian performance, given it's the start of the Eddie Jones era?
Yep.
They selected presumably what they thought was the strongest squad, and they would have been targeting this game, particularly given the fact that South Africa are missing so many.
Yeah,
which is better, worse?
It is an abysmal performance from Australia, in my opinion. Absolutely abysmal. Do you know what really summed up the whole performance for me? And this is a player that I love. I think he's one of the world's most exciting, maybe not one of the world's best, one of the world's most exciting players. Was watching Tom Wright just sort of, feebly look at the breakdown 1 yard away from his line as someone crashed over. Was it the Steph Toy try, maybe?
I can't remember which one it was.
It's literally the easiest try you've ever seen. He just picks it up and walks over, and Tom Wright is just looking at the breakdown. He's not even in a position to tackle. He just looks at him, flopping over the try line. He literally goes through the breakdown.
But there was a few breaks and a few tries where Australian defenders did not want to get involved.
They didn't, did they? They looked cowardly almost.
Yeah. They were not.
I think you need to pass out that Australian performance. I actually thought at half time, I was sort of scribbling down a couple of notes, and I thought while South Africa were the better team, I actually thought Australia were decent. I thought they were really good. I thought they were. I could see what they were trying to do with the kicking game, and they were trying to get a bit of territory in possession. It wasn't quite working, but it was an awful second half, but it wasn't an awful first half. I mean, maybe I'd want to go back and watch it again, but I don't know what happened in that second 40.
Well, do you think there's a chance that this relates to something we spoke about last week, which is what does possession rugby look like? What does physical rugby look like? And it's not what you think. It is a process of tenderising your opponents until you can score 5 tries right at the end. I think that's probably what happened. I think the Australians came out pretty manfully in the first half to try and take on South Africa. But once you break, you really break. Nothing breaks at all, and then it all breaks very, very suddenly. And I think that's what happened to Australia. When they sort of gave up on the physical battle, when they lost it and they were thoroughly tenderised, South Africa just ran riot, and their heads went down. There's low morale. It got worse and worse and worse.
I think there is a bit more to this as well, because you're right. Australia, it wasn't a terrible first half for them. They went down. It was 17-5 at half time, wasn't it? But they scored. Yeah. They scored a lovely first try, although there was a bit of a juggling at the line out. But they finished off that Koroibete try excellently. But the frustrating bit, watching it kind of through an Australian lens, was you're exactly right. I think both of you said Australia tried to play more of a kicking game, and they experimented with long kicks, with deep kicks, with box kicks, with high kicks, with short kicks, with crossfield kicks. And I'm struggling to think of, there's maybe one or two that kind of came off well. But
one kick from Nick White that went 5 metres out is the only one I can think of.
And there's one crossfield from Cooper, I think. But his little dinks over the top were just telegraphed and poorly executed, well read by the South African defence, South African back three. Many of his crossfield kicks were too short, too long. Like it was. I kind of see what they were trying to do in, exactly as you said, JB, the possession or non-possession rugby, depending on exactly how you do it.
Yeah.
But it was the execution that was just not there.
Yeah, I think there's an element of this, isn't there, where coaches just think if you tell players to kick the ball, they'll all of a sudden develop a good kicking game. And if your strategy is kicking, and I know what you're saying about the range of kicks that Australia were employing, you might need different players. You might need a completely different setup in order to pull this off. So if you look at, I think it's Caden Moody for South Africa, I'm sure it's him actually. On his debut, he was awesome because he was sent there to chase kicks. So it changes the whole look of your team from how your wingers operate to and how they chase their kicks to actually what the halfbacks do and who the halfbacks are. Quade Cooper's a marvellous, marvellous player. He's got all sorts of tricks, and he's probably got he has got a very nice short kicking game. But I think it's more than that. It's about the awareness. It's about using it on a regular basis. Same for Nick White. If you're going to change completely what you're doing, you might need completely different personnel. And if you don't have those personnel available to you, don't play that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I tend to agree. It'll be interesting to see, because we've said it several times recently and many times over the years that World Cups do tend to be won by teams who are very solid. They kick intelligently. They don't necessarily score lots and lots of points, but they can do that controlling possession type game very well.
Yeah.
So is this the first step towards doing it? And will they learn from this?
I think you're onto something there, Phil. You're onto something there, Phil. And again, it's a lot more enjoyable watching an Eddie Jones team when he's not your coach and trying to work out what he's up to, not having to deal with the frustration of what's behind it. But I think you might be hitting the nail on the head. I don't think that's how Australia are going to play ultimately. I think that maybe it's a recognition that they need to add that type of texture to their game, because what was noticeable in this game, and you've already mentioned Quade Cooper, JB, very, very intelligent rugby player. Nick White, tactically fantastic player, real good rugby brain. and you had others out there on that field that know what they're doing, and they persisted with this technique even when it was obviously not working, which sort of says to me that there's a bigger picture at play here. This is trying to make Australia fans feel a bit better and also make me not get ahead of myself as an England fan thinking that, oh, no worries if we meet Australia in a quarterfinal, because I just can't see them being that naive.
I don't know.
When it comes to World Cup time.
I mean, I've seen Eddie Jones up close for a long time now. He does some crazy things. So, if you remember the Nations Cup, which England played in, there was talk of like, we won't show you our attacking playbook until it's time, but we're just going to work on defence for 3 games. It's not how rugby works. You go out and you play the entire game all of the time. You don't just say, look, for 3 games we're going to do defence, and then for the next 3 we might do some attack. It's not really something which happens. He also has this tendency to want to pick players who, quote unquote, are test match animals to fit his system. Whereas I think someone like Dave Rennie would have been far better for Australia to stick with someone like Dave Rennie, because he's far more flexible in how he employs his players. So I like a coach who can see, like, an example of this would be Gatland, actually. He sort of formulates his team around the players that he has. He doesn't have the option to go out and have all these world-class players that he would like in these different positions. So you've got to be more flexible. Eddie Jones has never had that, and I think this is probably a reflection of it.
It will be interesting to see how Eddie Jones shapes up, because he's always talked a big game, like particularly for England over the last 3 years. He talked a big game about judge me on the World Cup, judge me on the World Cup. He allegedly had a plan for the World Cup, and I'm sure in his mind he has got a plan for Australia for that World Cup, but whether that actually pays off, comes to fruition, even exists, is going to be. We're going to find out over the next what would it be, 3 months, something like that, between now and the World Cup final. So I'm looking forward to watching that unfold without the skin in the game of it actually being England that he is potentially crashing into the side of a mountain.
Yeah, and another one to watch for the World Cup. We got a little glimpse at what journalists, coaches, press conferences, and all that can do when it's cranked up a little bit and there's a bit more at stake. Because I actually felt a little bit sorry for Eddie Jones with the headlines in South Africa this week. It was quite fun to watch, but I did feel a little bit sorry for him because he didn't say, we only want to play the A team, mate. We don't want to play a B team. He didn't actually say that. He was asked a question about the likely opponents, and all he actually said was, "Oh, we're looking forward to playing we always." What did he say? He said, "We always want to play the best. We always want to play the best team." And he was trying to actually deflect from what was a trap, but the journalist still managed to turn it into, he's disappointed that South Africa are playing the B team, which then that story looked like he had real egg on his face. I'm just sticking up for him a little bit on that one, because that's not what happened.
I didn't even know that was the storyline, to be fair. So thank you for that.
After the game, a journalist said to him, I don't know if you've seen the clip, it's really quite funny. Eddie does not take it well. The journalist says, so Eddie, you said before the game you were disappointed to be playing South Africa's B team. So what are your thoughts now? Basically, he was like, mate, you don't need to be a smart ass, mate. You don't need to be a smart ass. He did not take it well. He carried it on after the press conference had finished.
I find all of his shtick now so repetitive and dull. Just answer the question. Just answer the question. Like he's developed quite a confrontational attitude towards journalists, and I kind of do get that as well. But I think whatever his strategy is, whether it's to quieten down people with sort of very brisk answers, it just doesn't work now. I think he just looks a bit silly.
I still quite like it.
But you got to remember, what's the alternative, Jay? What is the alternative? We're on a journey. We're on a journey.
Yeah,
we're on a journey.
I wouldn't even dignify that with an answer. There you go. Write that.
Yeah.
Move on. Next question.
I always quite like him. I think he's
he's great value. It's like Steve Diamond. I quite
exactly
as frustrating as they can be, and you can disagree with them on lots of things. They're great characters, and Eddie Jones is.
Don't you conflate Steve Diamond and Eddie Jones, please? Very different
both hookers, both aggressive hookers and successful coaches.
Yeah, but one of them's like the legitimate finished article, and the other one's Eddie Jones. So I don't think it's a good comparison. Thank you.
Anyway, the fact that Argentina got panned as well, and Eddie Jones, talking about him for a second, got panned. That game next weekend, Checker Jones is set up beautifully.
Yeah, and also
of course,
for the first time in a while, fairly equal teams. I mean, there's always been one who's had the reins of a slightly better team. Let's put it that way. But these two, judging by these scores from the weekend, are a bit of a mess. And also, do you know what else it made me think? A couple of weeks ago, we were saying how exciting international rugby is because so many teams could win the World Cup. Well, I think we could narrow that down to maybe 2 Southern Hemisphere, 2 Northern Hemisphere. There's 4. I'd say there's 4 teams now, rather than 6 or 8.
I think you're certainly judging by this and the recent Six Nations. I think you're right. I think there's 4 teams.
I'm gonna have to I agree. I do agree with you broadly. But the fact that either Wales, 2 of Wales, Australia, Argentina, and England, most likely, are going to be in 2 of those are going to be in the semi-finals. Then it's just on any given day you could put 2 performances together. So I think that it's unfair on Scotland and maybe Ireland, maybe South Africa and maybe Italy. It's unfair, the draw, but it's really... I should have mentioned Fiji as well, I guess. Fiji could end up in a World Cup semi-final. The draw has really opened it up to the point that I think you'd have to include whoever gets to the semi-final. 2 of those teams will.
Yeah. Just going back to Australia, I'm looking at their team now. And, there's a lot of talent there. And there's a lot of talent not there as well. So they will get better. But I don't know what the answer is for Eddie Jones. Based on this... Whatever the answer is, he hasn't found it yet. I would suggest that they've just got to let them loose a bit because some of this talent is unreal. Ikitau, Corabetti.
One of the big problems they've got is their back line is great. Their scrum was on roller skates and their line out got hammered.
Yeah, well, if you look at it, they've not really. Who are your line out options? Nick Frost is a big old boy. Will Skelton's not exactly...
Richie Arnold.
Yeah, but from the last game. So you've got Nick Frost.
Yeah.
Hooper is Valentini and Hooper legitimate options because Hooper's not
Bobby
a big
Tom Hooper would be, I guess.
Yeah, well, he's about 6'6". Yeah, so.
Yeah, Tom Hooper's a big boy, but he came off after half an hour, didn't he?
Yeah, so you've got Frost, you've got Hooper, you've got your 2 jumpers. Most international lineouts are going to be able to deal with 2 big jumpers. So they're going to probably need a 3rd option there, and it's not clear to me that they had one.
Well, yeah, they need some props as well, because Alan Alalatoa, even with Will Skelton behind him, was getting pumped.
Yeah, he's a good player as well. I like him.
Yeah, he is a good player.
But there again, I don't think they're going to be the only ones getting pumped by Malherbe, Kitsoff, and whoever else that they decide to... who else do they have? DeToy, Vincent Koch. There's going to be a long list of people that are going to be pulverised. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. A long, painful list of broken bodies that I've encountered at the South African scrum over the course of 8 weeks.
True. Well, and we should just spend a moment talking about South Africa, who were superb. And we talked about the Australian kicking game, and it'll be easy to talk about Kurtley Arenza, and we can, and their wingers are really exciting. But Willie LaRue is absolutely class.
He's good. Yeah. I don't suppose we're breaking news on that one, but yes, he's a very good player.
But Damien Willems has kind of had the 15. A lot of people have been wanting Damien Willems, and actually,
so I would agree with that.
They've sort of been positioned as the guy that's on the periphery now and just a backup, but he's so good.
I think the thing is Willie LaRue is he's kind of small and underwhelming, isn't he? That's the thing. So you look at him and you don't think, oh, great, physical specimen. Wilhelmser, on the other hand, is a bit bigger, a bit more athletic. He's played a multitude of positions. I mean, I really like him. I really like him, whether it be 10 or 15. He just gives you a range of options. But you can't deny it, can you? When LaRue is on and he's in that second playmaker role, he's very effective. And South Africa's primary playmakers are not actually that good. You know, if you think about Andre Pollard, I mean, yeah, he's good, but he's not a world-class playmaker. He's maybe a world-class 10, but not a world-class playmaker. Willie LaRue is incredibly important then.
Willie LaRue is one of the most important players because of the way that he comes in and plays that second pivot role. I think he's an excellent player. And it will be interesting because Willemse can play that role. Even like Libok, who started at 10 and has been playing for the Stormers, got Stormers to a URC final. He can play 15 as well. So you could put Pollard with almost one of 3 second pivots because the South African centres, be it Diolande and Am or Esterhuizen and Am or Esterhuizen and Creel or whoever plays there, they are not playmakers. They can do lots of things amazingly, but they are not going to be a second international playmaker. So that 15 shirt is really, really important. And Willie LaRue showed once again what a class act he is, which is interesting actually because there's been some criticism for some players who are playing in Japan and not necessarily playing up to the high standard week in, week out.
Yeah.
Someone like Pablo Matera, for example, in the second game this weekend. But Willie LaRue has been playing for several years now in Japan, but still looks like he's got it. Still looks like he can play on the bigger stage, despite not getting the week in, week out steel on steel.
Yeah, the other two, which I think, well, not important because Peter Steph has been playing a fair bit of late, but for South Africa to sort of have so long without certain players, develop new talents, and then right before World Cup, I mean, if Peter Steph could get back to the best version of what he could be, and then you've got R.G. Snyman as well, who's been injured for the longest time, if he gets back to what he could be, you combine them with the sort of the... I'll tell you another one who never really made it. Like, he was meant to be absolutely brilliant, but he's never taken that step up, is Marco van Staden. Like, Marco van Staden...
a great game.
Like, if he could reach his potential... I mean, these are the guys that they don't need in New Zealand right now. They don't need. So imagine just adding those to the already dynamite mix which they have. I mean, it's a frighteningly physical squad.
Yeah, and in the South African back row, Marco van Staden had a great game and could have played himself into a World Cup spot in what is an incredibly competitive area of the squad. And Dwayne Vermeulen played like, unfortunately, Phil, you must have been looking at that thinking, where was this Dwayne Vermeulen when he was at Ulster?
I know. Oh,
all of a sudden, he's like the Dwayne Vermeulen of 2019.
Yeah, it is a bit. I mean, he did a solid job for Ulster, but we needed a big ball carrier, and he offered a lot of leadership, a lot of experience. He kind of guided the rolling maul brilliantly, but he wasn't the devastating ball carrier that he used to be.
No.
And we had a few glimpses of that this weekend, which is, I mean, slightly disappointing, but not entirely unexpected.
Do you think it's possible, though, just possible, that being in the South Africa... I mean, in the Ulster pack, he is the focal point of everything. You could legitimately say, if you're playing Ulster, right, 2 players focus on Vermeulen all of the time. Well, you can't really do that against South Africa. So being in South Africa, it's been... The 8 in the South Africa pack is a very different proposition to being the 8 in the Ulster pack. And I wonder if that just plays into his advantage a bit. He can be more of the leader. He doesn't have to take all the responsibility for carrying. And if you did commit too many people to stopping him, well, it's not as if they've not got other people that can do that job.
Yeah, you're exactly right. In Ulster, I mean, Ulster's pack is solid, but not enormous. Not by any stretch. Yeah. There's a few big bodies in there, but it's nothing compared to the South African pack, even relatively, because obviously the South African pack is international versus club, but even South Africa is relatively just about the biggest or certainly most aggressive international pack, whereas Ulster cannot claim that accolade in any competition they play in.
Yeah. So, go on, Tim. Sorry, I was going to say it's just. I was just
going to quickly mention before we get off South Africa, just in terms of individuals, I just thought Andre Esterhuizen was absolutely brilliant as well. And I think he's genuinely going to be pushing Deolande hard and may even get the 12 jersey.
I think you're right.
Ahead of him.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, he's just a force of nature.
Yeah. Love Esterhuizen. I absolutely love him. And I love on the South African backs, obviously the 2 World Cup winning wingers, Mapimpi and Colby, are absolutely class. But it's hard to say that Moody and Arendse will not be pushing them very, very close for those starting berths.
Particularly Arendse.
Right, so both of them, I think both of them are excellent. I mean, Arendse took his hat trick brilliantly.
His try scoring record already. It's like 9 tries in 7 tests.
Yeah. He's ridiculous. He has been absolutely incredible.
So I want to talk about.
I think both of them. Moody is, and you mentioned it before, JB. Moody in his kick chase and particularly box kick chase, because he's tall and rangy. He hits hard and he gets up and under those box kicks. So he could be very, very useful in World Cup.
Yeah. So I was going to mention how much I wanted to see this Marco van Staden that we saw on the weekend when he was at Tigers back in the day, but we never saw anything of him. But more importantly, I wanted to use the example of Arendse and Moody to talk about Stuart Hogg. So let's just jump straight onto that, and I'll tell you where I'm going. So Stuart Hogg's retired, just all of a sudden gone.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that, boys?
I'll be honest. It was only when I saw the thing today that I realised he hadn't properly retired already. I think because he'd said, his body can't do it anymore for Exeter at club level. In a way, I thought, well, I think I just had it in my head. Well, okay, well he's done then, because if he doesn't think that in November he can play club rugby, then I don't think in October he can play international rugby at a World Cup.
So you're so correct, Tim. You're so correct.
And I'm almost exactly the same. Like when he first announced several months ago that he was not going to continue after the World Cup, it was a little bit surprising. But put that with we've watched some of his decline over the past few years, from when he was in 2019 and before then. And because, God, he made the 2013 Lions tour, didn't he? So 10 years ago, he was one of the most exciting back 3 players in Europe and remained at that point for 7-8 years. But over the last couple of years, up to the point where he won the Heineken Cup. But since that point, we have seen his decline. Yeah. We saw his previous statement. And Tim, I was like you. When I saw his previous statement, I actually thought for quite a while that he was announcing his retirement at that moment. So this is, to me, it's not surprising news.
I think this might demonstrate there's a disconnect between what people think players can do and what players actually are capable of. Let me explain this. So, Stuart Hogg has been found wanting because he's at Exeter, and the demands of club rugby they just continue week on week on week. And I think as soon as he was found to be a bit fragile, particularly in his defence, and if you remember, he was on the bench, wasn't he, for the European Cup semi, or maybe the final, and certainly a Premiership final or a Premiership semi, something like that. So Exeter effectively had a £400,000 asset sitting on the bench, which was not most pleasing to Tony Rowe, I would guess. So the disconnect is, I think a lot of people are looking at the household names in rugby, and they're actually shocked that they're not going to make it to the World Cup, because I think everyone would have expected to see like a Justin Tipperick there. They'd expect to see what's his name, Alan Wynne-Jones there. I mean, these are the household names which people know. And I think particularly the more centralised unions, they go for this player welfare type model where they extend the careers of these well-known players because they're worth lots of money and they believe that there's no one better to replace them. And when it comes to the crunch later on in their careers, they just can't do it. Stuart Hogg has been very honest about this. I think the same thing happened to Alan Wynne and Justin Tipperick. They were looking at the World Cup build-up like, they'd love to be there, I'm sure, but they just can't deal with the physical intensity of camp now leading up into that World Cup. And I think there's just a disconnect there between what the unions think these players can do and what they actually can do. Ireland are the same.
Yeah.
I mean, they have extended the rugby life of Johnny Sexton probably beyond what it should be. And the reason I wanted to bring this up to South Africa is, South Africa's got some older boys, but the difference is in South Africa, there's no welfare or protection policy looking after them. You just have to be good enough. And if you're not good enough, you're going to find a kid like Moody or Arenze or Evan Roos pushing for your spot. And I think it's a very different proposition to have say, Vermaelen playing for you, because he's had to actually compete. And if he's not good enough, he will not play, compared to, say, I don't know, Alan Wynne-Jones, who has been nurtured through a whole season playing 2 or 3 games for a World Cup that he'll never attend.
I wonder if what I don't know, and maybe we'll never know, but I wonder if what happened with Alan Wynne-Jones, with Justin Tipperick, and maybe even with Stuart Hogg, is that these guys were kind of given a tip off by the coaches. Look,
yes, I think
you're probably not going to make it. So do you want to do this on your terms?
Yeah, and I also think there's a bigger spotlight on them too. So there's just this enormous pressure on that sort of player, because the rugby pool of players that are well known to the general public is so small. They sort of want to protect these lads. And I don't think it's good for the unions. I don't think it's good. I mean, it's not bad, but it just means that, certainly in the case of Ireland, who was their next 10? They don't have a next 10 because they've kept Johnny Sexton around for so long. No one's had really that opportunity.
I guess the element of what I was saying as well is, I've said this before, and I say it flippantly, but I kind of mean it a little bit. I think if your country calls on you, then you answer the call. So I'm not a massive fan of players retiring from international rugby. Stuart Hogg's just brought his retirement forward. That's fine. I'm not a huge fan of, I'm going to retire from international rugby. It's quite a football type thing to do. And I just like the whole, I like the whole traditional patriotic feeling that if your country calls on you, you're there.
Yeah,
that's me.
Stephen Donald, glad that he did not retire. Like, he just wasn't picked. And then his country did call on him and he played in the World Cup final. That kind of thing.
Exactly that.
Rather than saying, "Oh, by the way, guys, I'm gone. It's all about me."
Yeah, I'm gone. I'm gone so that I don't have to face the hit to my ego of not being picked on merit.
Now, just on that, is there a single South African player you can think of who's retired only from international?
Ooh.
I suppose a part of that would be the fact that they are able to play wherever.
Yeah, that because I think about the retired guys for Australia and New Zealand, and they're not really retired, are they? They're banned.
Well, in Australia, you've still got Gitto's law, so you can have 3 in any squad.
Yeah, 5 now.
There's 5 in any squad. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Whereas New Zealand, if you're playing outside of New Zealand, unless you've got one of these like little deals that Bowden Barrett and Richie McCaw and Dan Carter did back in the day, to go and play. I mean, they used to allow them to play in France, but a few injuries means that they now only do that to Japan, to go and play in the soft leagues in Japan. Then you have to be playing in New Zealand.
Yeah,
I can't think of any South Africans.
No, I can't.
It'd be like a Willie LaRue. I mean, they've got guys in here. Just have a look. How's Dion Ferree? 36, still going strong. Dion Vermaelen, 37, still going strong. I just wonder if there's an element of this. There's just not as much pressure on those lads. I mean, there's pressure for them to make it, but they're not the focal point of their entire national team like Alan Wynne-Jones is, or Justin Tipperick, or Stuart Hogg, or Johnny Sexton.
I'll tell you a South African who retired from international rugby for South Africa.
Johan Goosen.
He retired from all rugby to go and be the commercial manager for an enormous cattle farm.
Huge farm.
You'll find, which was a very sensible decision.
Yep.
No, Jean Klein. He retired from international rugby for South Africa.
CJ Stander as well.
CJ Stander, yeah.
WP Nell.
Yeah, Matt Stevens.
Yeah, there was a few actually. Mike Catt,
Paul Webster, yeah.
Yeah, loads actually. I take it back.
But Jean Klein, Tim, you were mentioning before about the clickbait story, the headlines from the Eddie Jones press conference not necessarily perfectly aligning with reality. Did you see the Jean Klein, Paul O'Connell, Backy's both
I loved it.
headlines?
I loved it. And I hope he said it.
Then,
I'd have so much more respect for him if he did say it.
Well, he did say it, but did you actually see the clip?
No, I didn't. I don't want to see the clip. It's going to
Hold
ruin
on.
it.
What was he meant to have said versus what actually was said?
Well, no, he did say what was meant to have said. So the headline was, I didn't grow up wanting to wear the number 4 shirt of Paul O'Connell. I grew up wanting to wear the Backy's Botha shirt. And so that was the headline, which made the story. And that was what he said, but it was in a series of questions about, like, who did he emulate? And it was presented in an incredibly, like, incendiary and inflammatory way when you read the headlines. And then when you hear the interview, it's like, well, of course he's going to make that point when he's asked that series of questions. Like, it wasn't... Reality and the headlines are two different things, I guess.
And also...
It's another example of that point.
Yeah, and two things could be true at the same time. So I would have done exactly what Jean Klein did if I were Jean Klein, but I hate the fact that he played for Ireland.
I like it both. Do you know what? If he never played for Ireland, he probably wouldn't be playing for South Africa. I think he made the right decisions.
He made the right decision, as I've just acknowledged. I would have done exactly the same. It was the best thing for him. It was the best thing for his family. And rugby's a short career. One injury can end it. Get what you can. I hate the fact that the rules allowed him to do it.
Yeah.
And the person I always think about is Devin Toner, because that would have been his last World Cup. It would have been the end, the swan song to his international career. And he didn't get to do it.
He did he?
Dropped.
Poor old Dev.
Yeah. Very sad.
Oh, well. I hope he wins a World Cup with South Africa. That's what I hope. But the
poor old Devin Toner stole the opportunity to go out in a World Cup quarter-final, robbed from him.
Unless Devin Toner makes a comeback for South Africa.
That would be a hell of a headline, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So the headline, Tim, in case... Because we didn't actually tell you what the headline is, but the headline was just John Klein, I did not grow up dreaming of wearing Paul O'Connell's shirt.
Yeah,
which sounds like he's good. I mean, that's how it happened in my head, and that's how I want to keep it.
Yeah, and that just makes it extra spicy for the game in Paris if Jean Klein is involved, which he more than likely won't be. But anyway,
it probably won't be.
Yeah, I mean, they are stacked. They are absolutely stacked.
A leapfrog: Moster, Etsabeth, Diaga, probably Snyman as well, and maybe Jean-Luc Dupree
and Ori,
Marvin Ori, who was good as well.
Yeah, he's got his work cut out.
Yes. Do you know the one comparison as we leap over to... Sorry, is that everything on Stuart Hogg?
Unless you've got anything else to add to him. I mean...
no, just what a great career he's had. He keeps hinting at what his next gig is. It's clearly on the telly. We'll see what it is.
I actually have an enormous amount of respect for doing this. It wouldn't be easy to go out in the World Cup, but I guess the temptation would be to... see if you could do it and hope it turns around. But to be honest enough with everybody and say, right on the eve of it, take someone else. I'm not worth the place. There is something to be said for that.
But there is, when I read, like, all the statements I've read from the likes of Navidi and Tipperick and Alan Wynne-Jones and Hogg, certainly the way they're written is, these guys' bodies are breaking down. Like, they've been asked to do repeated training sessions every day in a World Cup camp. So weight session, endurance, fitness sessions, skill sessions, contact sessions, and they just cannot do it. Yeah. And that's how. And I'm like, I've been in those positions where your body is breaking down, like you are falling apart. So I have a lot of sympathy with that, and I don't necessarily think all of them are exactly in that position, and some of it might be a little bit of ego protection. But I think there's a good chance that most of those guys are they just cannot live with that schedule anymore.
It's
after
quite
years of wear and tear.
Can I just point out, it's a very interesting juxtaposition, isn't it? How the clubs think they can manage their players compared to the international teams. So I guess Ireland are fairly uniformed in what the national team knows and what the club team knows, I guess, because they're so intertwined. But particularly for Wales, I mean, they do protect a lot of these players a lot through the top four, whatever it is, what's it called now? Celtic League, URC, throughout the URC campaign. And then when it comes to World Cup, they absolutely beast them. I mean, you would think, wouldn't you, if they protect them all through the season, they would know if they're capable of playing or not, rather than hammering them with these World Cup camps.
But I think I remember, I think it was you talking to Courtney Laws on Rugby Dungeon, and he was talking about the difference between playing for Northampton, club game, and the difference in intensity playing the international game, but not just the 80 minutes. It's the preparation you need to get your body ready to play those 80 minutes.
I tell you who it was. It was Gary Graham.
Gary Graham.
Honestly, Gary Graham was talking about how hard England camp was.
And I'm certain that Courtney Laws made the same point as well.
Possible.
And in the World Cup as well, everything is magnified.
Yeah.
Because in the Six Nations, you play 5 games over 7 weeks. Big deal.
Yeah.
Whereas in the World Cup, certainly in the group stages, you play 4 games in about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You play it with like 4 days rest in between games. And so you have to be like, there is no hiding place in the training camp because it's very, very different to.
It's even more than that. It's not just. It's also not just the international coaches or anything like that. It's the fact that you have in the World Cup, it'll be right now. It's the 40 odd, let's say, guys vying for a jersey, and the level of competition they are taking lumps out of each other. It just gradually ramps it up. It's like when you get to you watch the 10,000 meters or something at the Olympics, and like one person goes a little bit quicker, and then everyone else behind goes quicker, and before you know it, they're basically sprinting for the last 4 laps. That's basically how an international camp is as well, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. I never even thought of that, but that's exactly right. And you must in your heart of hearts know that you're falling behind when you see, your 25-year-old opposition who's just as big as you and a bit stronger than you and a bit faster than you, and it's sort of working out how the game is played at a frightening rate. Yeah, that has to be part of it.
And they're recovering. The 25-year-old competitor is recovering from that gym session, from that strength session, from that contact session, and they're ready to go again 2 hours later, the next day. Yeah,
I'll give you the last bit of this, which is also the way the international teams play. They want the biggest lads in a very, very stripped down version of the club game. It's just more intense, more of a basic game plan, which relies on physicality and intensity. So I guess you have that layer on it too, particularly for the teams like England, who don't get, well, they say they don't get enough time together. I think they get plenty of time together, but that's what they'll be looking to do.
Interesting. Just one way to segue to the New Zealand-Argentina game is the fact that what we've already mentioned that South Africa did particularly well was have that the combination of 10 and 15, and that was a feature of New Zealand as well, who have a bunch of different pieces they can put in those positions. This time it was D-Mac and Bodie, but they've got Richie Mwanga who came off the bench. They've got Will Jordan who will come into the reckoning, and others besides. But that 10-15 combination was devastating.
Yes. There's no other way of putting it. And I would add to that Geordie Barrett as well.
Geordie and Rico as a combination.
Well, yeah, which I said this a couple of years ago, I think, that Geordie Barrett, his best position is probably 12. It also aligns with one of the most difficult positions to play and probably a weakness for that New Zealand team. And because he is so big, like he's 6'5" and 105 plus kg, he couldn't, and he's also so fast, as you saw when he finished his try-off and he's played on the wing for the All Blacks. He's such a useful player because he has a bit of everything.
Tell you what, Harry Malander. Should have been Harry Malander.
Yeah.
If only for injuries. Yeah.
What does it say about New Zealand and their production of centres, that both their centres are wingers or fullbacks?
Or how much does it speak to just how difficult that position is?
Well,
because those two are, for wingers or back three, they are both very big. Like Rieko Ioane is about 6'3", over 100 kilos. Geordie Barrett is 6'5", well over 100 kilos. That they can slot in. It does say something to the size and skill set that you need to play those positions.
Yeah. Oh, God, goodness. I'm just looking at it.
I agree with that. I also think, and it's possibly what JB was hinting at, is that, well, certainly my answer to your previous question, JB, is that there is something about and I think it's right from when you're a kid in New Zealand, you just get the fundamentals nailed. Every single player on that team has great hands, great understanding of the game, great I'm looking at lines of running.
Now, and these guys they're not into the fundamentals. Damien McKenzie, Geordie Barrett, Richie Mo'unga, Bowden, but I mean, these are just some... It does seem like they just want to get their best players somehow on the field together in some way, or in a squad. I mean, their skills that those boys have. So yeah, okay, I say it flippantly. Obviously, they do have the fundamentals, but fundamentals plus something else as well. It's quite incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, Damien McKenzie...
We've already touched on it with South Africa, the power of, or the value of experience in a World Cup year. And we saw that as well. Dane Coles hasn't played for New Zealand for a couple of years, and he looks ace.
He is ace, though.
And
that'd be the clue there.
He's 36 now, I think, as well.
Is he? Is it old? Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah.
He doesn't play like a 36-year-old.
No.
Mind you, neither did Schalk Brits before he retired. Schalk Brits was a perennial 23-year-old.
Yeah.
Right until the end. He could come back tomorrow and still play like that.
And both of them as well have got the... it's a good comparison, that one, because both of them have got the kind of outside channel break, the hanging out in the wide channels, scoring tries for fun. And both have got that slightly over-the-top young man aggression as well, where they just take things a bit too far. Like I always think back to Schalk Brits punching Owen Farrell in the face, teammate Owen Farrell in the face in the... Was it the 2013 Lions?
Yeah, the story behind that is he's best mates with Ben Spencer.
Ben Spencer, I think when that happened, Ben Spencer was about 17 years old.
Yeah. So he saw the writing on the wall between Spencer and Farrell a long time before the rest of us.
Tried to nip it in the bud, but couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the skills on display for... I mean, just the name value on display for New Zealand is absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome.
And just go through that New Zealand team. I don't think there's anyone had a poor game. But Sam Cane, I thought, was really good. Josh Lord, who I rarely gets mentioned at lock and won't be a starter necessarily, but he looked really good. It's just right across the team. And I don't know, again, it would be an interesting question. Like, who had... Argentina, what on earth has happened to them?
Who knows?
At home.
They do have odd results, though, don't they, in fairness? Like, when you completely write them off, they can go to New Zealand, live in the hotel rooms for 3 weeks and still win. Or was it Australia they won?
Argentina. Well, Argentina have beaten New Zealand twice in the last 3 years, having never beaten them before. But Argentina, when was it? 2 years ago? The Jaguares got kind of ripped up, didn't it? Certainly the Jaguares that we knew for about 5 or 6 seasons, which it had a couple of benefits. It had like a route to top level for a lot of Argentine players, and it also meant you were keeping a lot of Argentine players together, so they got that cohesion, they got used to playing together, and so it was only a handful of the other stars who were playing elsewhere, like Matera or Issa or Imhoff or those guys. Whereas now, because that's ripped up, everyone is spread across the world. Like, everyone's spread right across all the different leagues, and therefore they're coming together for the test matches without that cohesion, without that same level of unity that they had for the last 5 or 6 years.
I think.
But if you remember, they got to a World Cup semi-final and finished third before the Jaguares, and we were talking after that World Cup. Can't remember which one it was. 2015.
Well,
we were talking after that.
2007.
World Cup, like, with the Jaguares, they're going to take it on another level.
Yeah, 2007 was when they beat France in the opening game, and then went on to, I think they got third place then.
Yeah, I mean,
but you are right. That Argentina team in 2007 played with probably the most simplistic game plan you could possibly ever play with, and that it might be that they have to just go back to that. Two big boots and a rolling maul and a very very effective set piece.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't that effective against New Zealand. In fact, that's one final thing which dovetails with Argentina, but I just want to mention on New Zealand is, and I did think this back in November when I saw that 25-all draw England-New Zealand, and I was really impressed by their props. But I tell you what, by the end of the World Cup, Tyrell Lomax and
Ethan de Groot.
Oh God, what's the other prop?
De Groot
that started.
De Groot.
Ethan de Groot. Yeah. Thank you, JB. Ethan de Groot and Tyrell Lomax are the real deal. And when you've got Fletcher Newell and I can never remember the name of the other guy, not Williams or Tamatea, the other giant prop. When you got them behind, they are South Africa level scary in my opinion.
I'm looking at the New Zealand team sheet. I didn't see this game. Did Cody Taylor play?
Off the bench.
Did they take... Oh, yes. Okay, that's fine. Yes, that makes sense.
They left Takiauho out because he was in the Super Rugby final.
Ah, yeah.
I think.
I mean, I don't really know much about the New Zealand front five. I've seen no Super Rugby, so I can't really pass comment. But it'll be interesting to see if they'll stand up.
They've got a lot better in recent years.
Well, let's see how they stand up to the South Africans next week, because that'll be the real test.
France on September the 8th.
Or France on September the 8th, yeah, quite.
The opening game of the World Cup.
God, I hope France pan them. Really do.
That's going to be some game, that.
I really want to see, for all the skills that Geordie Barrett has, how does he handle Jonathan Dante running down his throat?
I can't wait, mate. 59 days.
Yeah,
I think. Or is it 60 days today?
I mean, yeah, even the matchups. I mean, Aaron Smith is a wizard, but so is Dupont. Like, Dupont might have even stepped up to the next level. There are some incredible matchups, actually, thinking it through.
That will be a dynamite game. But the game this weekend, South Africa travelling to New Zealand, that is exciting.
That's really exciting.
Well, we'll soon find out if De Groot and Lomax are up to it when they go up against those boys.
It's not a bad test.
No, it's not, is it? Excellent. So we've done Rugby Championship. We've done Stuart Hogg. Who's been watching the under-20s? Because I have not.
I watched what I could today. Man, like that. Those two semi-finals, the one for the first v fourth, second v third from the seedings coming through the qualifiers, so good. Right. Ireland and France, worthy finalists.
So let's just stop there a second. I looked at the fixtures. Can you explain to me who's playing which games? Because there's 4 semi-finals today.
Yeah, so every team plays the same number of games. The 3 pool matches. Yep. And then effectively it's semi-final, positional semi-final. Well, there's basically a first to fourth playoff, semi-final, final.
Yeah.
And there's a 5th to 8th, and then a 9th to 12th.
Got it. So France will play Ireland in the final.
France will play Ireland in the final, which is effectively, for positions 1 and 2. England will play New Zealand. Not New Zealand. England will play... who did Ireland beat? South Africa. England will play South Africa to decide who comes third, who comes fourth, and so on.
Right. So everyone. So there's no not making the final and going home. You have to stay for the whole thing to get your position.
You play 5. Yeah. Every team plays 5 games. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Interesting. So England could finish 3rd.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you think about that from I suppose it's different in the pool games in the World Cup because every team plays 4 games anyway. So maybe that's not so bad. But it would be nice, wouldn't it, if you had, this has been talked about many times, if there was another competition that kept it bubbling for Georgia and
the UEFA Cup
Chile
of the World Cup.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I'd love that. And I think that'd be great.
Well, there are, if you look at football, and maybe it's not a great example, but I think there's something to it. Look at the enthusiasm that the UEFA, is it the Conference Cup or whatever the hell it was, which West Ham won?
Oh, yeah, the Europa Conference.
Yeah, and actually, that turns out to be fairly successful. I mean, I would not be adverse to seeing not only a UEFA Cup type thing, like a second tier competition going on at the same time as all, when the big boys go into the big boy knockout stage, there should be a secondary one, and then you can go home.
Yeah, I tend to agree because the first half of the World Cup is 2 games or 3 games every day for 3+ weeks, and it's brilliant. It's a festival of rugby.
Yeah,
and then you get 2 or 3 games a week for the last 3 weeks. So it's to fill that with more good content, because I imagine Georgia versus Fiji for the final of the, whatever you want to call it, the Europa style, the Conference World Cup. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, and also
such a good game.
You would still fill the stadium. I mean, it might not be full of Fijians and Georgians, but if you play out on the Friday night, and England are playing France in the final, say, there'll be a lot of people who just buy tickets for that just to be in the city to watch the final anyway.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
I think it's
and there's always host cities that don't get that get overlooked or don't get the nod. You could potentially do it like that, spread it around. It could be smaller stadiums or whatever. But there's ways it could be done. But I mean, it's amazing for Namibia and Chile and Uruguay to get the chance to play against best players in the world that they'll watch on TV. But it's also awesome for them to have something really meaningful at the end of it.
And also, not many teams, hardly any teams internationally get much competition experience in the knockouts. Just by definition, you only play it once every 4 years. The chances of you getting to the final are fairly remote. So giving someone like Chile competition experience all the way through to a semi-final, or in Namibia, that'd be awesome.
And who can forget what? I was just about to say who can forget, and I have forgotten who Uruguay beat.
Fiji.
Uruguay beat Fiji last time, didn't they?
They did.
Yep.
And the captain in tears giving his interview. They were never going to qualify, but what that meant, it would just be awesome to create more moments like that. And if seeing as World Rugby are going down the World League route, where they're going to cement the power and cash in the hands of the top 10 nations, well, at least extend a bit of an olive branch and go, we'll let you have some moments at a Rugby World Cup.
I bet there's in fact, now I'm thinking about it, I bet there's going to be more of those moments. The moments they love to put on their Twitter account, which have nothing to do with rugby, but moments about men being weak and crying and that kind of thing. There'll be far more stories like that in the lower competition than there will be in the actual senior one. Albeit the heavy favourites for that competition, if it was to be played 2 World Cups ago, would have been England, who went out in the group stages.
No, it'll be Ireland, South Africa, or Scotland for this one.
God, imagine the indignity for South Africa having to play like the second tier cup.
Yeah,
it's simultaneously a great opportunity for the small nations and a horrendous punishment for the big nations.
Also, I've just got to point out one of the things that World Rugby put up on their social channels, which has been the best thing for a while, which Phil brought up a couple of weeks ago. It was the Italian captain talking about going and smashing his opponents and making them respect us, and they don't respect us. It was like pure aggression and alpha maleness, and I loved it.
What do you say? Make your opposite man bleed at your feet. I know, but it might not have said that. It's something similar, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was along those lines. Yeah. The Italian under-20s captain. It was awesome.
Class.
Yeah. But by the way, they got smashed by Fiji under-21s.
Yes, they did.
Smashed.
Fiji have got some ballers.
Yeah. So England, who did you see any of the game, Tim?
I was working at the time, but I just kept an eye on it. So basically, while I was working today, I was half watching the cricket and then half watching the rugby.
Very wise indeed.
But Lewis Chesham, really like him from England's point of view.
Good.
Chandler Cunningham South is very good at rugby.
Is he
I quite
that
like
young?
this Greg Fisselau fella. He's all action. The 7. So I thought England's pack were good. The way England played, just their handling, their skills were really good. They played a really attractive style of rugby. And I thought they were going to win. They were 24-14 up against France. And then before you know it, I looked up and it was like 45-24 or something at one point.
Wow.
So anyway, France turned it on in the second half and it was a one-way traffic. And France, my goodness, England's second try was incredible. But some of the scores and some of the play that this France team have been doing during this World Cup is outrageous.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've named a guy there, Cunningham South, who I had no idea he was that young. I knew he was young, but I didn't know he qualified for the under-20s still. If you look in the French league, a lot of those lads have already got top 14 experience now, and it's a great league to get your experience from. And if you can play top 14, I guarantee you can play under-20s.
Two of France's best under-20s players are with the senior squad, and so haven't been able to play as well. The fullback, the centre Guetin, and the fullback whose name just escaped, Pierre Barret. Those two are awesome, and they at the last minute, just before the under-20s World Cup, were told, "Oh, you're with the senior side."
Oh, got it.
So France have got ridiculous talent.
Is Arundel still under-20s qualified?
I think he would be. Yeah,
I think he is as well. Yeah. So, goes both ways.
True.
Good. Right, so anyone wants to talk about anything else? I've got some brand new CrossFit socks. Does that excite you?
Are you wearing them, or are your feet covered at the moment?
I am wearing them. I've not watched much rugby this weekend because it was my sister's wedding, so I did that. But on Friday, I ordered brand new... Oh, do you know what I did on Friday?
Go on.
It
is CrossFit related, yes.
No legged rope climb.
No
legged rope climb. How about that?
No, that's
easy.
Yeah, that's easy, and I do that on Thursdays.
Yeah.
No, on Friday, I booked myself in for a PT session with a female lifter who competes. I think she competed at the Commonwealth Games, but she definitely is about to compete in where's she going to now? The Welsh Championships, and there's 2 of them. My word, it's impressive. They are incredible. So I booked myself an hour's session lifting with them, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
What tips did you pick up?
My snatch is actually surprisingly good, which I didn't realise.
What was their snatch like?
Unreal. It is unreal. Like, I'm not even going to go into. I'm not even going to delve into innuendo because you want to see just how good they are.
What do you mean innuendo? I don't understand.
Exactly. But my clean is not what I thought it was, despite it being very heavy.
Very good. And did you get any record-breaking lifts this week, JB?
No. Do you not? I've not told you I've got nerve damage in my arm.
No, but you did text me at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. one morning saying you got 190 back squat.
Oh, yeah. So I can squat, no problem. I can clean a bar, but I can't push anything over my head, and I can't do a press-up because I've got nerve damage in my left arm, and I literally can't push off on it. So I've been setting some good squat records, but I have not been able to push anything over my head, which is a shame because I want...
You have just reminded me. Oh, get well soon, mate. I hope that's on the mend.
Well,
I was going to say...
it's actually a good thing.
Yeah, go on.
It's actually a good thing because I can't concentrate on lifting now, so I need to do other things like running and squatting more. So it's fine. In fact, if anything, if I can stay injured for a little longer, it'll probably be beneficial.
There's a video I saw of Andrew Porter doing 8 rep back squats. Just, what was it, 260 kegs, and he was just doing it like repping it out.
Was it 260?
It was something. It was
I
something
thought it was more
around
like 200.
Like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
was it 200?
I think it's 200 for 8.
I don't know.
Which is still bloody good, by the way.
Yeah, it was 200 for 8, but it wasn't just the fact that it was 8. It was the control he had going down. He was slowed down, and the exact same pace back up again. It was really impressive.
It is, isn't it? It's like the Charlie Yules video. You don't understand how amazing these guys are until you see them at an activity which is tangible that you can also do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't really understand how good they are when you just see them running into each other. You do understand when you see them in a squat rack, you think, bloody hell, if I added 10 kg to my PB and did it 8 times, I'd be as good as Andrew Porter.
But also not bouncing out of the bottom and just smooth and steady the whole time. It's the control as much as anything that just blew my mind.
Is there another way to squat, is there?
Well, as in, some people go down fast and bounce out of the bottom.
Yeah, they do.
What I mean? Do. Well, in fact, that's what we all do when we're getting right near our threshold.
True.
So that led me to believe Andrew Porter's got a lot more in the tank. That's the point.
Yeah, we want more lifting videos.
Yeah,
a lot more.
Speaking of Charlie Yules and lifting weights, I think you've seen it, Tim, the first O2 Inside Line from the summer camps.
Yeah.
Where Charlie Yules, I didn't know he'd gone to South Africa to play for the last few months of the season. Probably to get
I did know this. I forgot about it.
Yeah, presumably to get off Bath's payroll towards the end of the season. But the most incredible bit there was Ellis Genge, England vice-captain, just announced as England vice-captain, on England's own social media that they have put out, basically accusing Charlie Yules of doing human growth hormone while he was in South Africa.
No.
Serious. Watch the video, and Genge, he makes this like offhand comment that, God, that boy, his nose has grown so much since he's been in South Africa.
Genji, no.
He can smell a Sunday roast on a Tuesday, that boy. It's like your England vice captain is accusing one of your players who's just been in South Africa for 3 months of taking HGH on your own social media.
By the way,
like,
because obviously Ellis Genge was making a joke, but I didn't make the connection with human growth hormone. Is that a well-known side effect then?
Yes, it is. Big foreheads, big noses.
It is.
Yeah.
It is 100%. A known side effect, and Genge 100% knows that as well. Like that's not a slip of the tongue. Like it's not a.
Well, it's not his job to not put it up on the channel, is it? Is that?
Yeah.
They're the editors.
It's Genge having a joke and like taking the piss out of one of his mates, which is fine, absolutely fine in the confines of camp. Just don't put it up on YouTube where hundreds of thousands of people are going to watch it.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
On a completely unrelated note, you, go online and have a look at the picture of Duan van der Merwe as a teenager.
Do you know how much HGH costs should you want to do some?
No, I do not.
It is unbelievably expensive. And it's so I looked into this, like I was looking into the costs of how much would it cost to dope up a whole team, because that's what I like. That's what I like to do. I tell you why. Matt Hardy, journalist for City AM, he's just done a story with this guy called D'Souza, and this D'Souza fellow, I want to say his first name's Nick, but I could be making that up. He wants to do a Olympics full of athletes that have been juicing. Right.
I've seen the headlines. I've not read about it, but I saw the headline.
Yeah, so he already claims that his 100-metre sprinter is faster than Usain Bolt's and could get the record tomorrow. And he's ready to go.
I would watch that. I would pay to watch that.
I would pay to watch
a juiced Olympics. Let's just see what the human body is capable of.
Yeah, so the question was asked to me, would you watch this for rugby? I'm like, yes, I would. Yes, I would. And then it came to, well, how much is this going to cost? And HGH is frighteningly expensive.
I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I'm just going to put out a recommendation for a read of a book. It's by an Australian one-time discus thrower called Werner Rietner. And he was Austrian, but then grew up in Australia and competed for Australia, and he pulled out of the Olympics just before the Sydney 2000 Olympics because he didn't want to do it juiced. And
he didn't want to do it juiced.
What he claims, is that it was the book is just an account of how rife it is, how the authorities know everyone's juicing, and how they only ever test the people that they know aren't juicing, and that the Olympic committees of all of the countries, but particularly the rich, wealthiest countries, all know it's happening and have their own doctors to administer it, as well as masking agents and all the rest of it. So it's a fascinating read.
So here's something interesting for you then. So weightlifting, I'm kind of getting quite into watching my weightlifting. I've not actually watched a whole competition, but watching lots of YouTube videos and whatnot. And the contention is that you become an athlete, and if you're an independent athlete, you'll be in a better position because you know what you're putting in your body. You can run your own doping, if you like. And if you're in a national program, it becomes a lot more dark because, of course, the international program doesn't want you to know what you're having, so you can't dob them in to the authorities. And also, you don't know what you're having, so you're better off becoming a independent athlete rather than subjecting yourself to medication which you don't actually understand or know what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and also, have you listened to the Joe Rogan interview from about 10 years ago now with the Carlos, the guy who, no, not Salazar, that's not him. It's a guy who worked with Dwayne Chambers, a Belco Labs or whatever it was.
Oh, no, I've never heard that.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing.
That is a brilliant, brilliant interview.
It's one of the best.
You kind of, there's some of it you're like, 100% believe that happened and still happens, and some of it you're like, maybe that's going a bit far.
Yeah, they had
superb.
Do you remember not Warren Sapp, a fighter called Sapp from back in the day?
Yeah, I think I do.
It's not Warren Sapp. It was maybe Benny Sapp or someone like that. Let me find his name. But that guy accused him of literally buying steroids by the barrel and then distributing them around the fighting leagues of Japan.
Huh.
And what's his name?
Wow.
Bob Sapp. That's the boy. Look at Bob Sapp, and you tell me that guy is juicing.
He did like mixed martial arts and like was it K1 or K2?
That's the one. Yeah.
Fighting. Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah, some great interviews. So there we go. That's that. What a great way to finish the podcast on performance enhancing drugs.
Well, just that 1986 Seoul Olympic 100-meter final that Ben Johnson got famously disqualified for. So this guy, Werner Rietner, what he writes about in terms of that is, well, Ben Johnson was from Canada, and Canada, their Olympic committee, didn't do any centralized doping.
Oh.
So Ben Johnson did it on his own, and that's how he ended up getting caught. And but Carl Lewis, Linford Christie, the people that got silver and bronze, and about three other sprinters in that race, all subsequently were found positive for nandrolone or whatever it was. So they all, but basically 7 out of the 8 in that Olympic final were doping, but only one of them got caught because he was from a country where they didn't do it in a centralized fashion.
Got it.
Well, there's also the list. This has been done so many times, but the list of up to about 2019, maybe 2018, pre-super shoes, super spikes and super tracks, because that just rewrites everything again. But the top 10 fastest 100-meter times of all time, or maybe it's the top 20, and say 10 of them are Usain Bolt, but every other name on the list, like Tyson Gay and Johan Blake and not Dwayne Chambers. I don't think he was in there, but the other guy is Justin Gatlin and Asafa Powell. Basically, everyone else on that list has, at some point in their career, tested positive for something or other, with the total exception of Usain Bolt, who is either a total freak, which I'm 50-50 on this. He is significantly ahead of the curve in many dimensions, or he was protected because he was too like the bank's too big to fail.
I think it's
I'm willing to believe the former on that one. I might be naive, and I love a little conspiracy theory. I love it, but I'm willing to believe the former on that one purely because when you look at Usain Bolt, he doesn't look like any of the others.
No,
physically, he doesn't have those like real remember the shape of Linford Christie back in the day, like ridiculous, like a Marvel character, not like a.
Funny enough, I'm literally
human.
looking at pictures of Linford Christie right now, and it reminded me. I was looking at pictures of Dwayne Chambers for some reason. This came up. And I looked at the British 100-metre record. So for all of the attention Dwayne Chambers got, he was actually rubbish. He's only I think he's only in the 8th fastest Briton. Linford Christie is still the fastest Briton.
No, not anymore.
Oh, who is he second then?
Zarnell Hughes about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's probably why.
Really?
That's probably why
Good
I was
knowledge,
reading it.
Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dwayne Chambers was a ridiculous specimen.
Yeah, but like if you, I'm not again. Well, they've both been caught for juicing, so I guess I can say it. But just if you were just objectively looking and going, guess juiced, unjuiced, then you'd instantly pick. The ones you'd instantly pick out, and they're all but you wouldn't pick out Usain Bolt. He's got a relatively normal figure.
Yeah, you're right. Actually,
yeah.
He's a bit smoother, isn't he?
He's unusual as well because he's just so tall. He's considerably 6'5". He's considerably taller than almost any 100-metre sprinter.
Yeah, he'd make a phenomenal lineup option.
He would do.
And final fitness-related thing, you spotted that High Rocks is coming to Manchester, JB.
Yes, I'm considering doing that, but I'm rubbish at running.
It's
mostly running.
Workout.
My sweet spot is actually shorter runs and heavier weights. But I don't think High Rocks is heavy enough for me to have any competitive advantage on anyone, really. It's just keep going. So I might do it because I'll be awful at it.
If I can get fit, that's not a bad workout for me.
Oh, that's a great workout.
The key question is getting fit.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm either going to do the team or do the individual with the heavier weights because I think I might get a slight advantage then. Very, very marginal.
The team is pairs anyway, isn't it? So you should.
Is it? I thought it was a 4-man team.
I don't know, or it's mixed. You have to be mixed teams after that.
It's mixed pairs,
bigger, I think.
Same-sex pairs, team, individual, and individual pro.
How many's in a team?
I think there's 4. I could be making it up. But my gym has started doing Sunday sessions just for High Rocks now. So I might have to get involved with those.
Interesting.
But
interesting. Anyway, watch the space. We may be High Rocks wankers as well as CrossFit wankers.
Well, anyone who's ever seen me do
so
any form of sport will know that I'm not a High Rocks type athlete, to put it mildly. So we will see. Yes. Well, an EggChasers four-man team if you can find a fourth man.
Well, that could be. We could use the podcast as a platform to reach out to a fourth member, recruit. Charlie Yules.
Let's see what Dwayne Chambers is doing that weekend.
Yeah, I wonder if you can get like a retired player to join us. Or a current player.
I bet we could.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I'm sure we can do...
That's a good shout. I like it.
And also, whilst we're talking about things we're going to do, it looks like I'm definitely going out to Dubai Sevens again, so that is fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. But
when is that? November
30th, I'm going to fly out there. And do you know what I'll be doing in Dubai Sevens? CrossFit, yeah. Well done, Tim. Nailed it.
Very nice.
Excellent.
All right. We've definitely run out of rugby stuff to talk about now.
Yeah.
Talk about CrossFit and juicing. We are done.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, boys. Right. Enjoy your travel, Tavern. And Phil, enjoy whatever you're doing tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be glorious. And everyone else, enjoy your drive to work whilst listening to our excellent podcast. We will see you again next week.